This is the plaintiff, Alexei Hoklove. He says he rented the defendant's townhome, and on the day he moved out, the defendant praised him, saying the place looked wonderful. They had a terrific relationship the whole time he lived there, but when he mentioned the return of his security deposit, the guy flipped out. He has no idea what set him off, but he wants his money returned and is suing for the $1,450 he's due. This is the defendant, Douglas Sykes. He says the other half of the story is his story. Simply put, the plaintiff owes him for back rent and back utility payments. The plaintiff decided on his own to slash his rent payments in half and never caught up. He has every right to keep the guy's security, and then some, and is quite sure the judge will agree. He's accused of changing his tune. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $1,310.06 for additional back rent and additional utilities.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
And welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket, the plaintiff rented the defendant's townhouse, and don't you know it, everything went great until it came time to returning the security deposit. But the defendant says the plaintiff is a renegade who decided to reduce his own rent. It's the case of "you made me insecure."
Okay, Alexei Hoklove, you are suing Douglas Sykes for $1,450, a return of the security deposit that you placed with him that he is refusing to return. You have a counterclaim against him for $1,310.06 in back rent you say he hasn't paid, and water bills that you say he hasn't paid. All right, what's going on?
The story began back in December 2009. My wife and I had signed the lease on December 26th for the lease beginning in January 15th, and there was a yearly lease.
Okay.
We have moved in. At that time, we've paid a deposit, an amount of
$1,450. There's no dispute about that it's $1,450.
Right.
There is a dispute about that number. Yes, there is.
There is a dispute about that number.
Yes.
How much do you say the security deposit?
The security deposit was in total $1,300.
Okay. And what proof do you have that you paid $1,450?
The reason why I filed the suit for $1,450 is because I moved out 3 days earlier on the month-to-month, and it just prorated the rent for the 3 days I didn't get to live in there.
Okay.
Well, it was because that property got sold. I had to leave.
You had to. Okay, let's get to that then. You're living there. Is the year lease over, or it's not over when it gets sold?
We went on the verbal agreement to month lease after the year was expired.
After the year's over,
yes.
Okay. And so how much longer were you living there?
3 extra months.
And then what happened?
Well, Douglas Sykes had promised in writing and verbally to repay the security deposit,
okay,
regardless of the discounts that were provided along the way.
Why were there discounts provided?
The discounts were provided for 2 reasons. Mr. Sykes had defaulted on the house at the time and started structuring a short sale. I've intended to purchase the property and had promised that, I'll try my best to do it. I've expressed clearly that I had some barriers to overcome, including coming up with a down payment and fixing certain credit issues. Down payment ended up being not a problem, but the credit didn't catch up quite as far as the demand letter from the bank.
All right, so you're living in the place, you like the place, you are getting into trouble, and you need to do a short sale.
Right.
And you tell him, I'm interested in buying it.
Yes.
So there's then a discount? Tell me about that from your perspective.
So he and I talked, and we verbally agreed to the discount on the basis that it would be used to help him put together the down payment.
Okay.
If I may submit.
To buy the house. So then in January timeframe, it became very clear that he wasn't going to be able to buy the house.
So how many months did he have a discount?
4 months, 4 and a partial.
And what was the discount?
Half, $450.
And what was the idea? That he was building reserves so he would have a down payment so that he would get approved for a loan? Right?
I guess both of that, yeah.
Okay. So, and then what?
And then in January, he told me he could not buy the house, at which time I told him that I was unhappy with the agreement. We both agreed at that time that the rent should return to its original amount as specified in the lease. And for a couple months, I was able to get the full rent out of him. Shortly after he announced to me that he was going to move out. So
Okay, and then he says he moved out a few days before the end of the month. Was that by his choice?
That was by his choice in planning and scheduling. It had absolutely nothing to do with my request.
Okay, what day did the place get sold?
It got sold, but it was sold to an investor, and he could have stayed in it.
How much later?
It was sold, I believe, on about the 8th.
Of what month?
Of April.
And he moved out when? End of March? When did you move out?
4th.
End of 4th of what?
4th of April, I apologize.
Why are you shaking your head?
Just because that's the way his story has been all along.
Meaning what? I don't understand.
Well, it's a lot of confusion, and he says that I say a lot of things that I've never committed to or never said.
All right, do you have emails?
I have the evidence here.
Let me see the emails.
In one, Mr. Sykes says...
Don't move from where you are. My bailiff doesn't like it. Just hand him the email.
Okay. Sorry, it's my first time. This is the deposits. This is his commitment to reduce the cost regardless of the situation.
Let me just ask you, what is your theory on this?
I believe...
What would be the reason for him to give you a discount if you're not going to buy the place?
Here's what happened. We moved in. Initially, we talked about a 2-year lease.
Okay, I don't want to go backwards anymore. Please go forward. To answer what I asked.
In July...
Look, stop. He says, Judge, the only reason I agree to a reduction is because he's going to buy the house. If he doesn't buy the house, the reduction doesn't count, and I get to use a security deposit for that time.
It was never stipulated that way.
If you're not going to buy the house, why do you think that you're paying half the rent, though? What would be the reason why? Just because you're good looking?
The commitment that you've made for a discount, as you can see clearly, is not related.
Yes, as I can see clearly, it says, you say to him, I have a question for you. You mentioned before we can possibly reduce the monthly rent. I am working really hard on getting the credit history on track. It costs quite a bit. And then the response is, I propose you make the normal payment this month. Don't worry about the water bill, I'll take care of that. Then starting in October, pay $450 a month. This will cover my cost for the townhouse, okay? What do you think he is reducing your bill for, if not to help you to get a loan so you can buy his house? Then you end up not getting it. What do you think is going to happen?
So, does this tenant get his security back? Does he get the money back?
I don't think that he should.
Why?
Because it is the landlord's issue, prerogative.
It's a landlord's prerogative because the guy didn't buy the place.
Exactly.
Got your point? Going inside the courtroom.
You know, this is obvious. Yeah, the words in there are not, but if it doesn't happen, then you must return my money. And because I am only doing it, yeah, that's not in there. So what I have to do as a judge is read in the obvious intent of the parties. And now you have a counterclaim against him. What's this for?
Okay, the counterclaim is basically the for the difference between the rent that was not paid, the total of the rent that was not paid, plus the utility bills that were not paid, minus the security deposit that I'm still holding.
So what months are they?
There were 4 months where it was half payment.
So October 15th, November 15th, December 15th, January 15th.
And then
that covers him to February 15th.
And then there was 1 month where he only paid $700 because he told me that he couldn't afford to pay the full amount.
$700 instead of what?
Instead of $900. The original lease agreement was for $900 per month.
Okay. You agree that October 15th, November 15th, December 15th, and January 15th, you paid only $450, right?
There were 4 months in which I poured $450. That is correct.
And then that next time, were you $200 short? Yes or no?
200. Since Doug remembers.
All right, perfect. Okay, now. All right.
I'm not disputing any of that.
That's fine. No, what you're disputing is your obligation to pay it. I understand. Okay. Now, show me the water bills, please. So what did you want to tell me?
I've asked Mr. Sykes specifically what is going to happen with the security deposit. Multiple times, verbally and in writing.
Okay.
And he committed that he will refund it anyway.
Refund it anyway?
Yes.
Okay, so now let's look at that. On September 25th, there's an email that he sends you saying, yeah, your security deposit will be yours. That's when you're still buying the house. That's before you're rejected by the bank and you're no longer going through the process. Yeah, that's its plan, for sure. Okay, do you have an email after you look at him and say, guess what? No, I'm not buying your house. Do you have an email then?
We had a phone conversation on March 15th.
Okay. Where you say that he cheerfully said he returned the security deposit?
No, at that point we agreed on half deposit. During our conversation...
That happened?
No.
Okay, all right. What is this that I'm looking at? Is this your notes? Your Quicken thing?
Yes.
Give me the bills.
They're at home.
Oh, God. Seriously, come on. You know, can I ask you a question? Do you ever watch People's Court? I know you're going to say no. And
Sorry.
maybe you should. You know, because if you don't know how to come to court, if you know that you want to get $600, how could you not bring me the bill from the city that says, this is the bill for this address and this is how much it was? You have 48 hours to give me the water bills. The offense to paying this amount on the counterclaim is I don't have to judge because he told me I didn't have to. It is abundantly obvious from the emails that the only reason that he proposed that was for you to be able to buy the house. When you weren't able to buy the house, that doesn't mean you don't have to pay for your own water. This was something he was doing so you could build up the cash reserves to be able to do something. And when you petition him, hey, what can you do for me? Because it's going to take a substantial sum. He says, all right, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do this so you can get that substantial sum. Then it doesn't matter that you got that substantial sum because you didn't use it to buy the house because you couldn't. And then what? Then you get 4 months of skating on rent? That's not how it works. No. On your claim against him, $0. On his claim against you, $1,310.06. With the caveat that if I don't get those water bills in 48 hours, I'm taking out the water bill portion of this lawsuit. That's my judgment.
Okay, so it took a while, but ultimately the defendant got all of the water bills together and submitted them to the judge. The judge looked at them and decided it was fair, so the cost of everything was included in the judgment.